The massive space station called Nexus Station floated in the darkness of space like a giant metal city. Thousands of lights twinkled across its surface as ships from dozens of different alien worlds docked at its many ports. Today was special, because the most powerful military forces in the galaxy had come together for their yearly show of strength. Captain Lee Tae-min stood at the window of his small quarters aboard Seoul Pride, watching the alien warships arrive one by one. Each ship was bigger than the last and more frightening than anything he had ever seen. The Crimson Empire brought their dreadnoughts that looked like floating red mountains covered in weapons. The Steel Collective arrived with dark, angular ships that seemed to eat the light around them. Lee was a quiet man with steady hands and calm eyes. He had served in Earth military for 20 years and had seen many battles, but nothing like this gathering. His ship Seoul Pride looked tiny next to these alien giants. Where the alien ships had massive gun turrets and glowing energy shields, Seoul Pride appeared smooth and simple, almost like a civilian transport vessel. Commander Park So-jin knocked on his door and entered without waiting for permission. She was his second in command and had been with him for 5 years through many dangerous missions. Park was smart and tough with short black hair and eyes that missed nothing important. "Captain, we are receiving docking instructions from Nexus Station Control," she said, handing him a data pad. "They want us to dock at Port 7 next to the Hegemony Fleet." Lee nodded and took the pad, studying the docking arrangements. The station authorities had placed Seoul Pride between 2 massive alien battleships, each one at least 10 times larger than the human vessel. It seemed like they were trying to make a point about Earth place in the galactic order. "Have you seen the other ships?" So-jin Lee asked as he continued reading the information. Park moved to the window and looked out at the gathering fleet. Her expression remained neutral, but Lee could see the concern in her eyes. The Vex Empire brought 12 heavy cruisers and their new super dreadnought. The Moore Alliance has 15 battleships plus escort vessels. "I count over 200 alien warships total." Sir Lee joined her at the window. Each alien vessel bristled with weapons that could destroy entire cities: energy cannons, plasma launchers, missile systems, and defensive shields that glowed with dangerous power. Some ships were so large they had their own docking bays for smaller fighter craft. "What do they know about our ship?" Lee asked quietly. Park consulted her datapad again. "According to intelligence reports, they think Seoul Pride is just a diplomatic vessel. Our weapon systems are not visible from outside scans, show only basic defensive capabilities. They have no idea what we really carry." This was exactly what Earth Command wanted. Seoul Pride looked harmless on purpose. The ship's real weapons were hidden deep inside, protected by layers of false readings and sensor-dampening fields. Only a handful of people in the galaxy knew what the human ship could actually do. Lieutenant Kim Da-hoon's voice came over the communication system from the bridge. "Captain, we are approaching docking Port 7. Station Control is asking about our crew size and military capabilities. Tell them we have a crew of 50 and are here for diplomatic observation." "Only," Lee replied into his communicator. Standard protocols. Kim was their tactical officer, young but very skilled at reading enemy movements and predicting battle outcomes. He had graduated top of his class from Earth Naval Academy and had personally requested assignment to Seoul Pride because he wanted to serve under Lee. As they docked, Lee could see alien crews gathering at viewing windows to stare at the human ship. Some pointed and seemed to be laughing, while others shook their heads as if they felt sorry for the small human vessel. Lee had expected this reaction, and it did not bother him at all. Engineer Yang Mi-ra met them in the corridor as they headed toward the station. She was responsible for maintaining Seoul Pride most important systems, including the one weapon that made their ship special. Mi-ra was brilliant with technology and could fix anything that broke during combat. "Captain, the primary system is functioning perfectly," she reported, walking alongside them. "All diagnostic tests show green status. Power levels are stable at maximum capacity, Goodley said. Keep monitoring everything while we are on the station. I want hourly reports on all systems. The docking tube connected Soul Pride to Nexus Station, with a soft metallic clunk. Lee straightened his simple black uniform and checked that his sidearm was properly secured. Earth military uniforms were plain compared to the elaborate dress worn by alien officers, but Lee preferred practical clothing over fancy decorations. They walked through the docking tube and entered Nexus Station proper. The main corridor was huge, with ceilings that stretched up several stories high. Alien beings of all shapes and sizes moved through the space, some walking on legs, others floating or gliding along special pathways. The air smelled strange, with dozens of different atmospheric mixtures blending together. Translation devices mounted on the walls provided real-time language conversion, so species could communicate despite having completely different vocal systems. Lee and his officers followed signs toward the main conference center where the military demonstration would take place. Along the way, they passed groups of alien military personnel who stopped their conversations to stare at the humans. Some aliens whispered to each other while pointing at Earth representatives. A tall, red-skinned alien with 4 arms and multiple eyes approached their group. His uniform was covered in metal decorations and colored ribbons that marked him as high-ranking officer. Behind him walked 2 other aliens who looked like bodyguards. "You must be the Earth delegation, the Red Alien," said in accented but clear English. "I am Admiral Vextar of the Crimson Empire. I command the largest battle fleet in this sector of space." Lee stopped and gave a polite nod. "Captain Lee Taemin of Soul Pride. These are my officers, Commander Park Sojin and Lieutenant Kim Dahun." Vextar looked past them as if searching for more humans. "Only 3 of you?" he asked, with what sounded like amusement. "Where is rest of your delegation?" "We are the complete Earth military representation," Lee replied calmly. The alien admiral laughed, showing sharp teeth. 3 humans in 1 small ship to represent entire planet military. This should be very interesting demonstration indeed. Other alien officers had gathered around them, drawn by Vextar loud voice and obvious entertainment. Lee counted at least 20 different species, all wearing military uniforms, all staring at the human delegation with expressions ranging from curiosity to open mockery. An insect-like alien with clicking mandibles stepped forward. "I am General Mordak of Steel Collective. My scanners show your ship has no significant weapon systems. Are you here as observers only? We are here to participate in whatever demonstrations you have planned," Lee answered, keeping his voice steady and professional. This caused another round of alien laughter. Several officers made comments in their own languages that the translation system could not properly convert, but the tone was clearly dismissive. Park moved slightly closer to Lee, ready to defend Earth honor if necessary, but Lee gave her a small gesture to remain calm. Kim kept his hand near his sidearm while maintaining alert posture. Admiral Vextar grinned wider, showing even more sharp teeth. "Oh, we definitely have demonstrations planned, human. You will see what real military power looks like. Perhaps afterward, you can return to Earth and tell your leaders about true strength in this galaxy." The crowd of alien officers murmured agreement and made more comments that sounded like threats disguised as friendly advice. Lee listened to all of it without changing his expression or showing any sign of concern. "Very well," Lee said simply. "We look forward to your demonstration." As they continued toward the conference center, Lee could hear alien voices behind them discussing Earth military capabilities with obvious contempt. They had no idea that Soul Pride carried enough destructive power to eliminate every ship in the station. Soon they would learn that appearances could be very deceiving when it came to human technology. The main conference center of Nexus Station was enormous, with viewing screens covering every wall, showing different angles of the assembled fleets. Hundreds of alien military officers filled the space, each group clustered around their species representatives. The noise was incredible as dozens of different languages mixed together, creating a constant background hum of conversation. Captain Lee and his officers found seats in a section marked for smaller delegations. Around them sat representatives from minor worlds and trading companies who had been invited to observe the demonstration. The major powers occupied elevated platforms at the front of the room where their commanding officers could address the entire assembly. Admiral Vextar stepped up to the central speaking platform, his 4 arms spread wide to command attention. The room gradually fell silent as all eyes turned toward the red-skinned alien commander. Behind him, massive holographic displays showed his fleet of crimson dreadnoughts floating in perfect formation. Fellow warriors, he began, his voice amplified throughout the chamber. Today, we gather to show the galaxy what true military strength looks like. The Crimson Empire has brought our finest vessels equipped with the most advanced weaponry in known space. The holographic display zoomed in on one of his battleships, revealing gun turrets the size of city blocks. Each weapon could fire plasma bolts with the energy of a small star, capable of melting through any known armor or shielding. The assembled aliens murmured appreciation at the impressive firepower. Our main battle cannons can destroy a moon with a single volley, Vextar continued with obvious pride. Our defensive shields can withstand the explosion of an entire sun. No force in this galaxy can match the power of the Crimson Empire fleet. Thunderous applause erupted from the alien delegates as Vextar Weapon Systems demonstration continued. The holographic display showed simulated battles where Crimson ships destroyed entire enemy fleets with overwhelming firepower. Each explosion was more spectacular than the last, creating brilliant light shows of destruction. General Mordak took the platform next his insect-like body, clicking with mechanical sounds as he moved. The Steel Collective representative activated his own holographic presentation showing the dark, angular ships of his fleet. Unlike the bright crimson vessels, these ships seemed to absorb light, making them difficult to see against the darkness of space. Stealth and precision are the weapons of the Steel Collective, Mordak announced in his strange, clicking voice. Our ships can approach undetected and strike without warning. Our quantum torpedoes can phase through any shield and detonate inside enemy hulls. The demonstration showed Steel Collective ships appearing from nowhere like metal ghosts. Their weapons fired invisible beams that passed through defensive barriers as if they did not exist. Enemy ships simply exploded from within, leaving no trace of what had destroyed them. We do not need massive guns or bright displays of power, Mordak continued. We strike silently and leave no survivors to tell of our presence. Fear is our greatest weapon because enemies never see us coming. More applause filled the chamber as other alien commanders took turns showing off their military capabilities. The hegemony displayed their planet-killing missiles that could crack worlds in half. The Void Lords demonstrated their reality-warping technology that could make entire fleets simply cease to exist. Each presentation was more impressive than the last, showing weapons that could destroy solar systems or defensive systems that could protect entire worlds. The assembled delegates cheered and applauded each demonstration while making notes about potential alliances or threats to their own territories. Commander Park leaned close to Captain Lee during one particularly loud demonstration. "Sir, they are trying very hard to impress everyone. Each fleet is trying to prove they are the strongest in the galaxy." Lee nodded without taking his eyes off the presentations. "They are also studying each other," he replied quietly. "This is not just a show. Of course, it is intelligence gathering. Each commander is learning about their potential enemies. Lieutenant Kim was busy with a small device recording technical data about the alien weapon systems. His training at Earth Naval Academy included detailed study of alien military technology, and he was gathering valuable information for Earth Command." Captain Kim whispered during a brief pause between presentations. "The energy requirements for these weapons are enormous. They must carry massive power plants just to fire their main guns once. That makes them slow and vulnerable between shots." This was exactly the kind of tactical analysis Lee expected from his young officer. Kim could see weaknesses that other observers might miss. The alien ships were incredibly powerful, but that power came with significant limitations. The presentations continued for over 2 hours, as each major fleet demonstrated their capabilities. Some showed off their speed, while others displayed defensive systems that could protect entire battle groups. The variety of weapons and tactics was impressive, covering every possible approach to space warfare. Finally, Admiral Vex Tar returned to the speaking platform and gestured toward the small section where the human delegation sat. He had clearly saved this moment for last, wanting maximum impact from his final presentation. "We have heard from all the major military powers in this sector," Vex Tar announced, with obvious amusement in his voice. "But we should not forget our newest members. The Earth delegation has joined us today with their impressive warship Laughter filled the chamber as every alien turned to stare at Captain Lee and his officers. The holographic display switched to show Soul Pride floating next to one of the massive alien dreadnoughts. The comparison was ridiculous, with the human ship looking like a tiny insect next to a giant predator. "Perhaps the human commander would like to tell us about Earth military capabilities," Vex Tar suggested with mock politeness. "We are all very curious to learn about your advanced technology." Lee stood slowly and walked toward the speaking platform. The chamber fell silent except for occasional chuckles from various alien delegates. He moved with calm confidence, showing no sign of embarrassment or concern about the obvious mockery. "Captain Lee Tae-min of Soul Pride," he said simply when he reached the platform. "Earth brings 1 ship and 50 crew members to this gathering." The laughter grew louder as aliens realized the human was serious. Some delegates made jokes in their own languages, while others shook their heads in apparent sympathy for such a pathetic display. "Our ship carries standard defensive systems and basic propulsion," Lee continued without any change in his calm tone. "We are here to observe and learn from the superior forces assembled at this demonstration." This response caused even more laughter, and several alien officers made loud comments about primitive human technology. General Mordak clicked his mandibles in what passed for amusement among his species. "Tell us about your weapons systems." Vex Tar pressed, clearly enjoying the entertainment. "What kind of firepower does Earth bring to galactic conflicts?" Soul Pride is equipped with 1 primary weapon system, Lee replied, still maintaining his professional demeanor. "It is sufficient for our needs. 1 weapon," Admiral Vex Tar repeated loudly for the entire chamber to hear. "How many shots can this single weapon fire before requiring recharge?" 1 shot is typically sufficient," Lee answered simply. The chamber erupted in laughter so loud that the translation systems had difficulty processing all the different alien languages at once. Some delegates were practically falling out of their seats with amusement, while others wiped tears from multiple eyes. "1 shot," General Mordak repeated between clicks of laughter. "What can 1 shot possibly accomplish against fleets like ours?" Lee looked directly at the insect-like alien commander. "That depends on the target," he said. Calmly, Admiral Vex Tar raised one of his 4 arms to quiet the chamber. "Well then, human perhaps. We should arrange a practical demonstration. The asteroid field near this station would provide excellent testing grounds for all our weapons systems." The suggestion was met with enthusiastic approval from the alien delegates. Here was a chance to see real firepower in action and to demonstrate once and for all the superiority of alien military technology over primitive human attempts at warfare. "Very well," Lee replied without hesitation. "Soul Pride will participate in your demonstration." As he returned to his seat, Lee could hear excited conversations breaking out all around the chamber. The aliens were already planning how to divide up the wreckage of the human ship after their demonstration was complete. They had no idea they were about to witness something that would change their understanding of warfare forever. The asteroid field stretched out before them like a graveyard of dead worlds, filled with floating rocks of every size, from tiny pebbles to massive boulders the size of cities. This was where the great demonstration would take place far enough. from Nexus Station to avoid any accidental damage but close enough for perfect observation through the station advanced sensor arrays. Captain Lee stood on the bridge of Sol Pride watching as alien warships took their positions throughout the field. Each vessel was a masterpiece of military engineering bristling with weapons that could reshape planets. The crimson dreadnoughts of Admiral Vextar fleet glowed like angry stars, while the dark ships of General Mordak Collective seemed to fade in and out of visibility. Commander Park approached with the latest tactical readings, her expression calm, but alert. "Sir, we have 12 alien warships surrounding us in a standard attack formation. Each ship is maintaining maximum weapons range while keeping their targeting systems locked onto our position." Lee nodded as he studied the tactical display. The alien commanders were being cautious despite their obvious confidence. They wanted to demonstrate their superior firepower while minimizing any possible risk to their valuable vessels. Lieutenant Kim called out from his station. "Captain, the Crimson Empire flagship is requesting communication. Put them through," Lee replied, settling into his command chair. Admiral Vextar face appeared on the main screen, his 4 arms visible as he gestured from his impressive bridge. The background showed dozens of alien crew members working at stations covered with blinking lights and holographic displays. Captain Lee, the alien commander, began with obvious amusement. "We have arranged a simple demonstration for your education. Each of our vessels will show their primary weapon systems by destroying selected asteroids. You may observe and learn what real military power looks like." Lee kept his expression neutral. "We appreciate the opportunity to witness your capabilities, Admiral. Sol Pride will participate as requested." Vextar laughed, showing his sharp teeth. "Participate," he repeated. "Captain, your ship has one weapon that fires one shot. What exactly? Do you plan to participate with? We will demonstrate Earth military technology when appropriate," Lee replied calmly. "Please proceed with your exhibition." The communication ended, and Lee could see alien crew members on other ships pointing at Sol Pride through their viewing windows. Some seemed to be taking bets on how quickly the human vessel would be destroyed. If actual combat began, Yang Mira's voice came through the internal communication system from the engineering section. "Captain, all primary systems are operating at full capacity. The gravitational resonance chamber is charged and ready for activation on your command." "Excellent," Lee replied. "Maintain all systems at ready status, but keep the energy signature masked. I want them to think we are just observing." The first demonstration began as a hegemony battleship powered up its main plasma cannon. The weapon was enormous, running nearly the full length of the ship hull and glowing with contained energy that made the surrounding space shimmer with heat distortion. The plasma bolt that erupted from the cannon was brighter than a small sun, streaking across the asteroid field like a spear of liquid fire. When it struck its target, the asteroid simply ceased to exist, vaporized so completely that not even dust remained behind. Cheers echoed across the communication channels as alien crews celebrated the impressive display of destructive power. The hegemony captain announced that his weapon could fire 12 such bolts in rapid succession, capable of destroying an entire enemy fleet in minutes. Next came the Steel Collective demonstration, as one of their dark ships seemed to disappear from view. Advanced stealth technology made it nearly invisible even to Sol Pride's sophisticated sensors. When it fired its quantum torpedoes, the weapons passed through solid rock like it was empty air before detonating inside their targets. The explosions were particularly spectacular as asteroids burst apart from within their rocky shells, blown outward in perfect spheres of debris. General Mordak announced that his weapons could penetrate any known shielding or armor, making traditional defenses completely useless. The demonstrations continued with each alien fleet showing off their most impressive capabilities. Void Lords used reality warping technology to make asteroids simply fold in on themselves until they disappeared into nothing. The Spiral Confederacy demonstrated their time acceleration weapons that age their targets millions of years in seconds, turning solid rock into cosmic dust. Each display was more impressive than the last, as alien commanders tried to outdo each other with increasingly spectacular shows of force. The asteroid field was being systematically destroyed as massive rocks that had floated in space for millions of years were obliterated in moments. Kim monitored the weapon signatures, carefully recording detailed information about each alien system. "Sir," he reported quietly, "the energy expenditure for these weapons is enormous. Most of these ships will need significant recharge time between shots. This was valuable intelligence that Earth Command would want to study." The alien weapons were incredibly powerful, but they came with serious limitations that could be exploited by a clever enemy. Finally, it was time for the main event as Admiral Vex-Tar flagship moved into position for the grand finale. The massive Crimson Dreadnought was over 2 kilometers long and mounted dozens of heavy weapons, but its primary cannon was something beyond normal comprehension. The weapon began charging with a sound that could be felt rather than heard as massive amounts of energy built up within the ship power cores. Every light on the vessel dimmed as all available power was diverted to the main gun. Even through the vacuum of space, Soul Pride could detect the gravitational distortions caused by such tremendous energy buildup. "Behold," Admiral Vex-Tar announced, across all communication channels, the ultimate weapon of the Crimson Empire. "This is our Star Killer cannon capable of destroying entire solar systems with a single shot." The weapon fired and space itself seemed to tear apart as the energy beam lanced across the asteroid field. Everything in its path simply vanished. Not destroyed, but completely removed from existence, as if it had never been there at all. The beam continued far beyond the asteroid field, leaving a perfectly straight line of emptiness through space. The silence that followed was profound, as every observer tried to comprehend the level of destruction they had just witnessed. The Starkiller cannon had lived up to its name, demonstrating the ability to eliminate not just ships or planets, but entire star systems if necessary. "Now comes your turn." Captain Lee Admiral Vex-Tar voice carried clear mockery as he addressed the human ship. "Please show us this single-shot weapon that Earth considers sufficient for galactic warfare, Lee. Activated Soul Pride communication system, knowing that every ship in the area was listening. This is Captain Lee Tae-min to all vessels. Earth appreciates this demonstration of your military capabilities. We would like to make our own small contribution to today's events." He paused and looked around his bridge at the crew who had served with him through so many dangerous missions. These men and women had trained for years to operate the most advanced weapon system ever created by human science. However, Lee continued, his voice calm and professional. "We must warn all vessels to withdraw to safe distance. Soul Pride will now demonstrate Earth defensive doctrine." The laughter that erupted across the communication channels was immediate and loud. Alien voices mocked the idea that one small ship could pose any threat to their mighty fleets. Several commanders made jokes about human arrogance, while others suggested that Soul Pride should surrender now to avoid complete destruction. Lieutenant Kim looked up from his sensor station. "Captain, I am reading weapon systems powering up on multiple alien vessels. They appear to be preparing for a coordinated attack." Lee was not surprised by this development. The alien commanders had grown tired of their game and were ready to end the demonstration with the complete destruction of the human ship. They wanted to send a clear message about what happened to species that dared to challenge galactic authority. "All crew to battle stations," Lee announced over the ship internal communication system. "Prepare for combat operations." Engineer Yang Mi-Ra voice came through clearly from the engineering section. "Captain, the gravitational resonance chamber is fully charged and ready for deployment. All safety protocols are active, and we are cleared for firing." Weapons Officer Choi Jun-ho reported from his station. "Sir, I have targeting solutions for all enemy vessels. The gravitational field will encompass their entire formation with a single discharge." Lee looked out at the alien ships surrounding them, each one representing the finest military technology their civilizations could produce. Soon, these proud commanders would learn that sometimes the greatest power came in the smallest packages. "Stand by for firing authorization." Lee commanded as Soul Pride prepared to change galactic history forever. The bridge of Soul Pride hummed with quiet efficiency as every crew member prepared for what would be the most important moment in human military history. Captain Lee stood at the center of his command deck watching the tactical displays that showed 12 alien warships in perfect attack formation around his small vessel. Commander Park moved silently between stations, checking on each crew member and ensuring all systems were operating at peak performance. Her calm presence helped maintain discipline even as the tension on the bridge grew with each passing second. Captain Kim reported from his tactical station, "All enemy vessels are showing full weapon charges. Their targeting systems are locked onto our position and they appear ready to fire on your command." Lee nodded as he studied the enemy positions. The alien commanders had arranged their ships in a classic destruction pattern designed to ensure no escape routes existed for their target. They obviously planned to end this demonstration with the complete annihilation of Soul Pride. Admiral Vextar's voice crackled across the communication channels, his tone filled with mock concern. "Captain Lee, we are detecting some unusual energy readings from your vessel. Perhaps your single weapon system is malfunctioning under the stress of facing real military power." The other alien commanders joined in with their own taunts and suggestions that the humans surrender immediately to avoid unnecessary suffering. General Mordak's clicking voice suggested that Soul Pride could serve as a museum piece to show future generations what primitive technology looked like. Lee activated his communication system and spoke in the same calm, professional tone he had maintained throughout this encounter. "Admiral Vextar and fellow commanders, this is Captain Lee Taemin of Soul Pride. Earth Command has authorized me to demonstrate our defensive capabilities as requested." He paused for a moment, allowing his words to reach every ship in the area, including Nexus Station, where thousands of beings were watching through advanced sensor arrays. The next few minutes would determine humanity's place in the galactic community forever. However, Lee continued, "I am required by Earth military regulations to offer one final warning before weapons deployment. All alien vessels should withdraw immediately." To avoid unintended consequences, the response was exactly what Lee expected, as laughter erupted across all communication channels. The alien commanders found the idea of a warning from such a small ship to be incredibly amusing. Some made jokes about human regulations, while others suggested that fear had finally overcome human arrogance. "Your warnings mean nothing to us human," Admiral Vextar replied with obvious contempt. "We have witnessed your pathetic ship and your minimal crew. What possible threat could you pose to fleets that have conquered entire sectors of space?" General Mordak added his own mockery with mechanical clicking sounds. "Perhaps we should capture your vessel intact for scientific study. Future generations would benefit from examining such primitive technology." The other alien commanders agreed enthusiastically with suggestions for displaying Soul Pride in various museums or research facilities. They discussed how to divide up the human crew for interrogation about Earth military capabilities and planetary defenses. Lee listened to all of this without showing any emotion on his face. He had expected this reaction and had prepared accordingly. The alien commanders' arrogance would be their downfall, as they had consistently underestimated human determination and ingenuity. Young Mira's voice came through the internal communication system from the engineering section. "Captain, the gravitational resonance chamber is holding steady at maximum charge. All containment fields are stable, and we are ready for controlled discharge." This was the moment that decades of human research and development had been leading toward. The gravitational manipulation technology hidden within Soul Pride represented the greatest scientific achievement in Earth history, combining theoretical physics with practical engineering in ways no other species had imagined. Weapons Officer Choi Jun-ho reported from his station. "Sir, I have confirmed targeting data for all enemy vessels. The gravitational field effect will encompass their complete formation, ensuring total coverage. Lee had personally selected Choi for this mission because of his exceptional accuracy and calm demeanor under pressure." The 4. Part 1. The Gathering Storm, 1,200 words. The massive space station called Nexus Station floated in the darkness of space like a giant metal city. Thousands of lights twinkled across its surface as ships from dozens of different alien worlds docked at its many ports. Today was special because the most powerful military forces in the galaxy had come together for their yearly show of strength. Captain Lee Taman stood at the window of his small quarters aboard Sol Pride, watching the alien warships arrive one by one. Each ship was bigger than the last, and more frightening than anything he had ever seen. The Crimson Empire brought their dreadnoughts that looked like floating red mountains covered in weapons. The Steel Collective arrived with dark, angular ships that seemed to eat the light around them. Lee was a quiet man with steady hands and calm eyes. He had served in Earth military for 20 years and had seen many battles, but nothing like this gathering. His ship Sol Pride looked tiny next to these alien giants. Where the alien ships had massive gun turrets and glowing energy shields, Sol Pride appeared smooth and simple, almost like a civilian transport vessel. Commander Park So-jin knocked on his door and entered without waiting for permission. She was his second in command and had been with him for 5 years through many dangerous missions. Park was smart and tough, with short black hair and eyes that missed nothing important. "Captain, we are receiving docking instructions from Nexus Station Control," she said, handing him a data pad. "They want us to dock at Port 7 next to the hegemony." Fleet Lee nodded and took the pad, studying the docking arrangements. The station authorities had placed Sol Pride between 2 massive alien battleships, each one at least 10 times larger than the human vessel. It seemed like they were trying to make a point about Earth's place in the galactic order. "Have you seen the other ships?" So-jin Lee asked as he continued reading. The information Park moved to the window and looked out at the gathering fleet. Her expression remained neutral, but Lee could see the concern in her eyes. The Vex Empire brought 12 heavy cruisers and their new super dreadnought. The Moore Alliance has 15 battleships plus escort vessels. "I count over 200 alien warships total," Sir Lee joined her at the window. Each alien vessel bristled with weapons that could destroy entire cities. Energy cannons, plasma launchers, missile systems, and defensive shields that glowed with dangerous power. Some ships were so large they had their own docking bays for smaller fighter craft. "What do they know about our ship?" Lee asked quietly. Park consulted her data pad again. "According to intelligence reports, they think Sol Pride is just a diplomatic vessel. Our weapon systems are not visible from outside scans, show only basic defensive capabilities. They have no idea what we really carry." This was exactly what Earth Command wanted. Sol Pride looked harmless on purpose. The ship's real weapons were hidden deep inside, protected by layers of false readings and sensor-dampening fields. Only a handful of people in the galaxy knew what the human ship could actually do. Lieutenant Kim Da-hoon's voice came over the communication system from the bridge. "Captain, we are approaching docking port 7. Station Control is asking about our crew size and military capabilities. Tell them we have a crew of 50 and are here for diplomatic observation." "Only," Lee replied into his communicator. "Standard protocols." Kim was their tactical officer, young, but very skilled at reading enemy movements and predicting battle outcomes. He had graduated top of his class from Earth Naval Academy and had personally requested assignment to Sol Pride because he wanted to serve under Lee. As they docked, Lee could see alien crews gathering at viewing windows to stare at the human ship. Some pointed and seemed to be laughing, while others shook their heads as if they felt sorry for the small human vessel. Lee had expected this reaction, and it did not bother him at all. Engineer Yang Mi-ra met them in the corridor as they headed toward the station. She was responsible for maintaining Sol Pride's most important systems, including the one weapon that made their ship special. Mi-ra was brilliant with technology and could fix anything that broke during combat. "Captain, the primary system is functioning perfectly," she reported, walking alongside them. "All diagnostic tests show green status. Power levels are stable at maximum capacity. Good, Lee said. Keep monitoring everything while we are on the station. I want hourly reports on all systems. The docking tube connected Soul Pride to Nexus Station with a soft metallic clunk. Lee straightened his simple black uniform and checked that his sidearm was properly secured. Earth military uniforms were plain compared to the elaborate dress worn by alien officers, but Lee preferred practical clothing over fancy decorations. They walked through the docking tube and entered Nexus Station proper. The main corridor was huge, with ceilings that stretched up several stories high. Alien beings of all shapes and sizes moved through the space, some walking on legs, others floating or gliding along special pathways. The air smelled strange, with dozens of different atmospheric mixtures blending together. Translation devices mounted on the walls provided real-time language conversion so species could communicate. The moment Weapons Officer Choi Jun-ho pressed the firing control, the entire universe seemed to pause, as if reality itself was holding its breath before witnessing something that had never happened before in galactic history, deep inside Soul Pride hull. The gravitational resonance chamber that had been charging for hours suddenly released all its stored energy in a controlled burst that sent ripples through the fabric of space itself. Captain Lee watched his tactical display as invisible. Forces spread outward from his ship like waves in a pond, moving at the speed of light toward the 12 alien warships that surrounded them in perfect attack formation. The gravitational field expanded silently through the vacuum of space, carrying with it the power to tear apart atoms and reshape matter at the most fundamental level possible. Commander Park monitored her sensors as the weapon effect reached the first alien vessels in less than 2 seconds, covering the massive Crimson Empire. Dreadnoughts that had been so proud of their star-killing capabilities just minutes earlier, what happened next would be remembered throughout the galaxy as the moment when humanity announced that Earth was no longer a weak species to be mocked and threatened by superior alien civilizations. Admiral Vextar's massive flagship was the first to show signs of the gravitational attack as its crimson hull began to ripple like water disturbed by an unseen hand. The enormous dreadnought that was over 2 kilometers long and weighed millions of tons started to stretch and bend as gravitational forces pulled at every atom in different directions. The ship's elegant curves began to distort as the molecular bonds holding its hull together came under stress that no engineer had ever imagined when designing. The vessel Vextar's voice came across the communication channels filled with confusion and growing panic as his bridge crew watched their instruments show impossible readings. "What is happening to my ship?" He transmitted his 4 arms, gesturing frantically at displays that showed structural integrity, warnings flashing red across every system. The answer was that Soul Pride gravitational weapon was pulling apart the very atoms that made up his vessel, causing metal to separate into its basic components and scatter into space like cosmic dust. The Steel Collective ships were experiencing the same impossible phenomenon as their dark, angular hulls began to twist into shapes that violated every law of physics their designers had understood. General Mordak's clicking voice filled the communication channels as he watched his stealth vessels become visible again, their cloaking systems failing under the gravitational stress. "My sensors show no energy beam, no plasma discharge, no missile impact." He clicked frantically. "But my ship is coming apart at the molecular level." The insect-like commander was correct, that no conventional weapon signature existed, because Soul Pride was using forces that operated on a level far beyond normal military technology. Yang Mira monitored the gravitational resonance chamber from her engineering station, watching as the weapon performed exactly as human scientists had predicted it would when they first developed this incredible technology. "Captain, the gravitational field is operating within normal parameters," she reported to Lee over the internal communication system. "All containment systems are functioning properly, and we show no stress on our own hull." This was the genius of human gravitational manipulation, that it could create selective fields affecting only designated targets while leaving the weapon platform completely unharmed by its own destructive forces. The hegemony battleship that had demonstrated its planet-killing plasma cannon just minutes earlier now found itself helpless, as that same weapon began to dissolve into its component particles. The massive gun turrets that could melt asteroids with single shots were now scattering into space, as atoms that had been bonded together for years suddenly lost all cohesion under gravitational stress. Lieutenant Kim watched his tactical display with fascination as one by one the enemy vessels began to fade from his sensors like ghosts disappearing at sunrise. "Sir," he reported to Captain Lee, "the gravitational field is affecting all enemy ships simultaneously. Their hulls are separating at the atomic level, and their power cores are destabilizing." Alien crews had no defense against this type of attack because their shields and armor were designed to stop energy beams and physical projectiles, not gravitational manipulation that worked directly on matter itself across the alien formation. Emergency alarms were blaring as crew members who had been confident of victory just seconds earlier now faced the impossible reality of watching their ships dissolve around them. The Void Lord's vessels, which had seemed so impressive with their reality-warping technology, found that their own advanced systems were useless against forces that operated on such a fundamental level. Their ability to fold space and manipulate dimensions meant nothing when space itself was being controlled by an external gravitational field that could override their technology. The communication channels filled with panicked voices as alien commanders tried to understand what was happening to their mighty fleets. Impossible Admiral Vextar managed to transmit before his ship communication array scattered into particles too small to detect. "No weapon can do this to our ships." But Soul Pride gravitational weapon was doing exactly what decades of human research had promised it could do when properly deployed against enemy targets. The technology worked by creating localized distortions in space-time that effectively erased matter from existence without leaving any trace of conventional weapon discharge. The spiral Confederacy ships that had demonstrated their time acceleration weapons were now experiencing their own temporal distortion as gravitational forces affected the flow of time around their hulls. Their proud vessels began to age rapidly in some areas, while other sections seemed frozen in time, creating stress patterns that no material could withstand. Commander Park watched her sensor readings as the alien warships continued to fade from existence one after another, like candles being blown out by an invisible wind captain. She reported to Lee, "All enemy vessels are showing complete structural failure. Estimated time to total dissolution is less than 10 seconds. The 12 most advanced warships in this sector of space, representing thousands of years of technological development and trillions of credits in construction costs, were simply ceasing to exist. Each vessel that had threatened Soul Pride with destruction was now experiencing that same destruction turned back upon itself with surgical precision. The gravitational field continued its work, tearing apart molecular bonds and scattering atoms into space, while leaving no debris that could be recovered or studied. Choi Jun-ho monitored his weapon systems as the gravitational resonance chamber completed its discharge cycle according to the predetermined firing sequence. "Sir, the weapon has completed its programmed cycle," he reported to Captain Lee. "All targeting parameters were met, and the field effect remained within predicted boundaries in the space of 15 seconds. Soul Pride had eliminated 12 capital ships and their entire crews without suffering any damage to its own systems. The alien vessels that had surrounded them with such confidence were now nothing more than scattered particles, too small for sensors to detect." Yang Mira announced from engineering that all ship systems were cycling down normally as the gravitational weapon returned to standby. "Mode Captain, the gravitational resonance chamber is powering down safely," she reported. "All safety protocols are reactivating, and we show no damage to any ship systems." The tactical display now showed only empty space where moments before had floated hundreds of thousands of tons of advanced military hardware. Sole Pride drifted, alone in the asteroid field, surrounded by nothing but vacuum and the fading energy signatures of gravitational distortion. The silence that followed was profound, as if the universe itself was trying to comprehend what had just occurred in this remote corner of space. Lieutenant Kim looked up from his sensors with an expression of awe as he realized what his ship had just accomplished. "Captain, all enemy contacts have been eliminated," he reported quietly. Total engagement time was 15.7 seconds. In less than 16 seconds, humanity had announced to the galaxy that Earth was no longer a species to be underestimated or threatened. The demonstration was complete, and Sole Pride had proven that sometimes the greatest power came in the smallest packages. As Captain Lee prepared to return to Nexus Station, he knew that the galaxy would never again look at humanity the same way. The age of alien dominance was over, and the age of human equality had begun with a single shot, from a weapon that could reshape reality itself. Sole Pride turned slowly in the empty asteroid field, where just minutes earlier, 12 of the most powerful warships in the galaxy had floated in perfect attack formation, ready to demonstrate their superiority over the small human vessel now. Only silence filled the space around Captain Lee's ship, as the gravitational weapon effects faded completely, leaving no trace that alien fleets had ever existed in this corner of the universe. The communication channels that had been filled with alien laughter and mockery just moments before remained completely silent, as if every species in the galaxy was holding its breath, waiting to understand what had just happened. Captain Lee stood on his bridge watching the tactical display that showed only empty space where enemy contacts had been tracked. Seconds earlier, Commander Park approached with the latest sensor readings, her expression calm but alert as she processed the magnitude of what they had just accomplished. "Captain, we are receiving multiple communication requests from Nexus Station," she reported. "Station Control is demanding immediate explanations, and every alien delegation wants emergency meetings." Lee nodded as he studied the communication logs that showed frantic messages streaming in from dozens of different species, all wanting to know how 12 capital ships could simply vanish without any trace. Lieutenant Kim called out from his tactical station, "Sir, I am detecting massive communication traffic between all remaining alien vessels. Many ships are requesting immediate departure clearance from the station." This was exactly what Lee had expected would happen once word spread about the demonstration. Every alien commander would want to return to their homeworlds immediately to report what they had witnessed. Yang Mi-Ra's voice came through from engineering. "Captain, all primary systems are secured and operating normally. The gravitational resonance chamber has completed its cool-down cycle, and all safety protocols are active." Sole Pride had emerged from the engagement completely unharmed, while eliminating every enemy vessel with surgical precision. The demonstration had been more effective than Earth Command could have hoped. Weapons Officer Choi Jun-ho looked up from his console with an expression of quiet satisfaction. "Sir, the weapon performed exactly as designed. All targeting parameters were met and no collateral damage occurred." Lee activated his ship communication system, knowing that his next words would be heard by thousands of beings on Nexus Station and transmitted across the galaxy within hours. "This is Captain Lee Tae-min of Sole Pride to Nexus Station Control," he announced in the same calm, professional tone he had maintained throughout the entire encounter. "Our demonstration has concluded successfully. Request permission to return to docking station." The response from Station Control came immediately, but the voice sounded shaken and uncertain. "Captain Lee, you are cleared for immediate return to Docking Bay 7. Station Administrator requests urgent meeting upon your arrival." As Sole Pride began its journey back toward the massive space station, Lee could see other ships undocking and departing at unusual Speed. Many alien vessels were clearly leaving without completing their planned activities. The observation decks that had been crowded with aliens eager to watch human humiliation now stood empty as word spread about what had really happened in the asteroid field. Commander Park monitored the communication traffic between alien delegations and reported that every major species was calling emergency council sessions to discuss the implications of human military capability. Lieutenant Kim tracked the movements of departing ships and noted that several fleets were heading directly toward their home systems at maximum speed rather than continuing with planned operations. The docking bay approach was completely different from their earlier arrival, as maintenance crews and station personnel treated Soul Pride with obvious respect and caution. Gone were the pointing fingers and mocking comments, replaced by careful distance and whispered conversations as beings tried to understand how such a small ship could possess such devastating power. The docking tube connected with its usual soft metallic sound, but Lee noticed that far fewer station personnel were visible in the area around their assigned berth. Yang Mira secured all engineering systems and reported that Soul Pride was ready for extended station operations, with all sensitive equipment properly locked down as they prepared to leave their ship. Lee gathered his officers for a final briefing about how to handle the diplomatic discussions that would inevitably follow. Remember that our goal remains peaceful coexistence with all galactic species. He told his crew, "We have demonstrated Earth defensive capability, but we do not seek domination or conflict." Walk through Nexus station corridors was dramatically different from their earlier journey through the facility. Alien beings stepped aside to allow the human delegation to pass, and many stared with expressions that ranged from fear and confusion to obvious respect. Groups of alien military officers who had been laughing at human expense just hours earlier now fell silent when the humans approached. Some species had clearly recalled their personnel from shore leave and were preparing for immediate departure, while others seemed to be holding emergency strategy meetings. The main conference chamber was packed with representatives from every civilization as news of the demonstration spread throughout the station. The atmosphere was tense with nervous energy as species that had dominated galactic politics for centuries struggled to understand their new reality. Admiral Vex Tar Chair sat empty at the Crimson Empire delegation table, serving as a stark reminder of how quickly military superiority could vanish. General Mordak's position remained vacant as well, leaving the Steel Collective scrambling to reorganize their entire command structure station. Administrator Kexlon called an emergency session to order his multiple, eyes scanning the assembled delegates with obvious concern. "We are here to discuss the events that occurred during today's military demonstration in asteroid field designated XK-7. He announced, his voice carefully controlled. Lee and his officers took their seats in the same section marked for smaller delegations, but now found themselves the center of attention rather than objects of mockery. Every alien representative watched them with expressions ranging from curiosity to barely concealed fear as they tried to process the implications of what they had witnessed. The Earth delegation will now provide explanation of recent events." Kexlon announced, his voice carrying carefully measured authority. Lee stood and walked to the central speaking platform where hours earlier he had been subjected to ridicule from commanders who no longer existed. The chamber fell completely silent as every being waited to hear what the human captain would say about the demonstration that had eliminated 12 capital ships. "I am Captain Lee Taemin, representing Earth military forces." He began using the same calm tone that had served him throughout this encounter. The demonstration was conducted in response to direct challenges from fleet commanders, who questioned human defensive capabilities. He paused and looked around the chamber, making eye contact with representatives from species that had participated in the earlier mockery. Many seemed unable to meet his gaze, while others watched with obvious fascination at this human who had just reshaped galactic power dynamics. "Earth wishes to clarify that our participation was purely defensive in nature," Lee continued. We responded to threats against our vessel using standard military protocols. Representative from the hegemony delegation stood up, his voice shaking slightly as he asked the question everyone was thinking. Captain, what kind of weapon can eliminate 12 capital ships without leaving any debris or energy signature? Lee considered, his response carefully knowing that his words would be analyzed by intelligence services across the galaxy's sole pride, is equipped with defensive systems appropriate for protecting Earth interests. He replied, technical specifications remain classified under military regulations. This answer caused murmurs throughout the chamber as alien representatives realized they would not be getting detailed information about human military technology. Administrator Kex Lon raised one of his arms to restore order before asking the next logical question. The Galactic Council requires assurance that human weapons will not be used aggressively against peaceful civilizations. Earth seeks only peaceful coexistence with all species, Lee replied firmly. We have no territorial ambitions beyond our own solar system and no desire for conquer.